think that if Pat Cullen doesn't understand the rules as to what the striking ballots are, then perhaps she shouldn't be leading that union. She knew full well, or she should have done, that actually you have 6 months since the point of ballot to do your strikes. And then, yes, you can continue striking, but you have to reballot your members. So I actually think the fact that this was allowed to go to court is just a sign that these strikes are now getting weaponised as a political football. I don't want my family's livelihoods and the livelihoods of similar to be a political football. I want this to be a good faith negotiation from all parties. What say you?
I say I'm surprised that you're more worried about the RCN losing a legal case on a technicality.
No, they didn't lose it on a technicality. They lost it
down the
because...
pub. It was a technicality that the strikes, the period that the strikes could have gone on for would have come in a day before the current action was due to end.
Yes, but, ultimately, I sympathise with my sister, my mum and all of their colleagues. I want them. I need to repeat myself because otherwise I get lambasted for being an awful, awful human being.
That's too much.
Doesn't want nurses to be paid. I do. Right? But at the same time, I also want everyone else that pays taxes and expects a certain level of service from the NHS to receive a decent service.
Agreed.
If you don't have frameworks around these strikes, literally anyone will be out all the time, God knows how long, on strike, and then the public will really suffer. So I think that actually the framework of strikes has to be respected. And it wasn't a technicality, it was the framework which had been set in place that everybody was aware of.
It's a fundamental deadline.
Hang on, guys.
Yes,
I haven't actually got in.
I know, sorry,
You've gone again.
You'll wait until you get
so,
me on the kids one.
So the thing here is, what most viewers and listeners, I reckon, will get really angry about is that in our country, over £8 billion is spent a year by the NHS on agency nurses, and most viewers and listeners, I reckon, want, like you, that money to go into the pockets of amazing nurses like your family. So I reckon that most people, as Keir Starmer said quite nicely earlier on this channel, are more bothered about why the government took so long to talk to nurses and when they're going to resolve the dispute. And it was an interesting priority that they focused on this case instead of more discussions to try and bring a new offer in that the members might support.
But if they don't, I'm so sorry, I want to bring you in.
You know a lot about... He knows a lot about losing... He knows loads about losing legal cases. Ask him. He's an expert.
Kevin Craig.
He is.
He's getting right in there.
He does.
Boxing gloves, ding-ding. I'm going to be like an unofficial ring girl tonight. Right, go, Ben.
Before he gets going, I thought I'd get in.
Yeah, go on.
Right. That just fires me up. It doesn't stop me. That actually just, gives
I know.
more momentum.
I'm waiting.
But I think Pat Cullen has handled this with great ineptitude. The entire strike. She started off with an outrageous claim of 19%. And I looked askance at that when they put out a 19% figure. Inflation had been 10%. Yes, they've been underpaid for many years. Yes, they deserve a significant rise. And I'm completely with you. And at the outset of these strikes, my sympathy was entirely with the public sector workers who had been underpaid, including the Royal College of Nurses, particularly the Royal College of Nurses, who haven't ever striked before. But to go out of the stalls on a 19% demand was bound to put the government into a box. They were not going to come out and engage with a ridiculous figure like that. So that was her opening stall, and she got that completely wrong. Then she got it completely wrong on the other end of the extreme when she accepted a 5% wage increase and a £1,700 bonus, which was de minimis by comparison to what she should have stood for, and even smaller by comparison to her initial figure. And then to go out on a 2-day strike, and you're quite right, Michelle, it's not a technicality, it's a fundamental aspect of their right to strike. It ends after 6 months, and to go out on a 2-day strike with one of those days falling on the other side of the deadline is inept. And what she's done, she might think she's got the media on her side because she's on the steps of the court accusing this rapacious government of having another one over these hard-working nurses. But actually what she's done is given the government an upper hand because they've taken her to court and they've won. And that is not a good look. This lady probably needs to be sacked. The only thing I can say in her defence is that the Royal College of Nurses has never been on strike before.
They have, but they've never had a big national strike like this. So they did strike, I think it was in Northern Ireland, I think it was about 2019, there or thereabouts. I'm going off my memory here, which is a bit sketchy these days. They've never had like a big national strike to this extent.
Anyway, they're clearly not capable of managing this strike. And She needs to go. I think she needs to go as head of the union.
She needs to stay in post and keep telling everybody in this country that will listen that we are spending over 8 billion quid a year on agency nurses, which should go to the likes of Jubes' family members.
Yes, but I want... And so just to be clear, because I am...
She's lost the fight, hasn't she?
Well, hang on.
She's lost her members. She failed to get a good settlement. She was then overturned by her members, and now she's lost in court. 3 failures. And she hasn't delivered a result for the nurses.
Look, it's unfortunate for her that there was this technical legal ruling, and it was very difficult.
Why do you keep calling it a technical legal ruling?
Because most people down the pub will go, anyway, what about, never mind the details about that technical ruling. Are the nurses back on strike? When are they back in work?
Do you know what I would say to my mate down the booze? If my mate said to me, Michelle, banging on about technicalities,
go get around it. 8 billion quid,
go get around it. I'd say to my mate, listen, right, you don't get what you're on about, because it's not a technicality, it is a fundamental principle of the strike framework. And if you just let that fundamental principle go on this one, what you're going to do, you're just going to have everyone striking all over the place for as long as they want, in however format they want. And then it will be absolute carnage. So I support people's rights to strike, albeit actually I would make a better provision for emergency services. But anyway, I support the right to strike, but I also support the right of the taxpayer to receive the care that we are paying for. And if Pat Cullen is so passionate about her mandate, her remit and all the rest of it, reballot your members, and actually, what's your problem? Because you'll get all of your buy-in, all of your turnout, and on you go.
Well, she's obviously, and the leadership are going to try and get to a place where the members will vote through what the leadership want them to accept. But the fact is, the government has so mishandled this that the members they just had enough, and they do. If you
come on.
No, hang on. Let me finish. I haven't interrupted you tonight, Ben. The billions of pounds are being paid to agency. Sort it out, government.
Yeah, but it's not a binary choice between paying agency workers and settling the strike action with a fair pay settlement. What we've got here, and I think the argument that Michelle, sorry, I'm sort of jumping to your defence. The argument Michelle is making is you've got a head of the union who's getting it wrong, who's breaking the law, who's not sticking by her remit, who's failed to deliver a deal.
Well, I actually think she's failing those nurses that she's supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Because she's got a cost settlement awarded against her of about 35 grand. The subs to get into this union are about 16 quid there or there, about 16.50 a month. So she's now taken the subs of 2,000 odd nurses and gone into fighting these legal costs.
And a lawyer didn't even attend on behalf of the RCN because they knew they were going to...
Well, listen, the great thing is, right, in the trade union movement, you can sack your leaders. They have to be elected. So the great thing is, it's not like a big property company that's value halves in 5 years, for example, where, you can't immediately sack the chief executive or the chairman, but that you can sack trade union leaders.
Well, look, You can
sack the chief executive of a property company as well, Kevin. Nice, that's 2 punches in. I'm making a note of the score.
Who reckons I'm going to have to get my boxing gloves out by the end of this show? I think it's about 50-50 at the moment. Look, I just want the future of my mum, my sister and everyone else to be treated with respect, not to be turned into some stupid point-scoring exercise by either side. I'm really frustrated about it, as you can probably tell. David says, I was a nurse for 40 years. I think it's a disgrace that nurses are striking. He says Pat Cullen has politicised the strike action, and this is the point. I just feel like the futures of my family and everyone, all of their colleagues, is being weaponised, and I don't like it. Lynn says, I'm against nurses striking and the doctors. They've lost the sympathy for my cause. I believe there should be a no strike clause in their contract. Ian says doctors, nurses deserve a pay rise and, more importantly, better working conditions. No one would disagree with you, I don't think, there, Ian. I guess it's how do we get to that point? That is what I'm trying to get to tonight. Richard says everyone that works hard deserves a pay rise and not just these heroes. Norman says ever since its creation, the Tories have wanted to destroy the NHS, and this court ruling now means that nurses are no more than slaves. He says, I wonder who on earth is next to be pulled into that category. Bit dramatic there, Norman, but everyone's entitled to their own view. What time is it? Very quickly, before I go to a break, quickly, teachers, your thoughts. Do you support those guys on their strikes?
Yes.
Do you? Do you support teachers?
I think everyone now needs to cease striking. They need to settle their disputes. The country's economy is suffering. People are suffering. We need to move on. They can come back to the table again next year, but settle it now, get the economy moving, get us back on our feet, and then, review the situation again in 12 months.